Welcome crew, new listeners. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, October 13th, Monday, October 14th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining me on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. If you're listening to us live right now, you may be listening to us on KPNL Radio, which you can find at kpnlradio at kpnl-db.com. You can also find us on eTalk Radio, which you can find on etalk.tv/radio, as well as Spreaker.com under We Are Paradox Media. If you like to watch as well as listen, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch under We Are Paradox Media. If you don't mind, mosey on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Like any video that you've watched or listened to, and leave us comments, whether good or bad, and basically ideas on what kind of guests you guys would like to have on the show. And we'll try to do our best to get someone in here that you would love to hear from. So we are on Douglas Adams' book, Mostly Harmless. This is the last book of his series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's been pretty awesome so far. If you have never read these books, just head on back to as far as you can on Storytime and find where we began, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Chapter 15. The first month, getting to know each other was a little difficult. The second month, trying to come to terms with what they'd got to know about each other in the first month was much easier. The third month, when the box arrived, was very tricky indeed. At the beginning, it was a problem, even trying to explain what a month was. This had been a pleasantly simple matter for Arthur here in Lemuelic. The days were just a little over 25 hours long, which basically meant an extra hour in bed every single day, and, of course, having regularly to reset his watch, which Arthur rather enjoyed doing. He also felt at home with a number of suns and moons which Lemuela had, one of each, as opposed to some of the other planets he'd fetched up from time to time, which had had ridiculous numbers of them. The planet orbited its single sun every 300 days, which was a good number because it meant the year didn't drag by. The moon orbited Lemuela just over 9 times a year, which meant that a month was a little over 30 days, which was absolutely perfect because it gave you a little more time to get things done. It was not merely reassuringly like Earth, it was actually rather an improvement. Random, on the other hand, thought she was trapped in a reoccurring nightmare. She would have crying fits and think the moon was out to get her. Every night it was there, and then, when it went, the sun came out and followed her over and over again. Trillian had warned Arthur that Random might have some difficulty in adjusting to a more regular lifestyle than she had been used to up till now. But Arthur hadn't been ready for actual howling at the moon. He hadn't been ready for any of this, of course. His daughter? He and Trillian had never even... had they? He was absolutely convinced he would have remembered. What about Zaphod? Not the same species, Arthur, Trillian had answered. When I decided I wanted a child, they ran all sorts of genetic tests on me and could find only one match anywhere. It was only later that it dawned on me. I double-checked, and I was right. They don't usually like to tell you, but I insisted. You mean you went to a DNA bank? Arthur had asked, pop-eyed. Yes, but she wasn't quite as random as her name suggests because, of course, you were the only Homo sapiens donor. I must say, though, it seems you were quite a frequent flyer. Arthur had stared wide-eyed at the unhappy-looking girl who was slouching awkwardly in the doorframe looking at him. But when? How long? You mean, what age is she? Yes. The wrong one? What do you mean? I mean that I haven't any idea. What? Well, in my timeline, I think it's been about 10 years since I had her, but she's obviously quite a lot older than that. I spend my life going backward and forward in time, you see. The job I used to have her with me when I could, but it just wasn't always possible. Then I used to put her into daycare time zones, but you just can't be able to find reliable time tracking now. You leave them there in the morning, you've simply no idea how old they'll be in the evening. You complain until you're blue in the face, but it doesn't get you anywhere. I left her at one of the places for a few hours once, and when I came back, she'd passed puberty. I've done all I can, Arthur. It's over to you. I've got a war to cover. The 10 seconds that passed after Trillian left were about the longest of Arthur Dent's life. Time, we know, is relative. You can travel light years through the stars and back, and if you do it at the speed of light, then when you return, you may have aged mere seconds while your twin brother or sister will have aged 20, 30, 40, or however many years it is, depending on how far you traveled. This will come to you as a profound personal shock, particularly if you didn't know you had a twin brother or sister. The seconds that you have been absent for will not have been sufficient time to prepare you for the shock of new and strangely distended family relationships when you return. 10 seconds silence was not enough time for Arthur to reassemble his whole view of himself and his life in a way that suddenly included an entire new daughter of whose merest existence he had not the slightest inkling of a suspicion when he had woken that morning. Deep, emotional family ties cannot be constructed in 10 seconds, however far and fast you travel away from them, and Arthur could only feel hopeless, bewildered, and numb as he looked at the girl standing in his doorway, staring at the floor. He supposed that there was no point in pretending not to be hopeless. He walked over and he hugged her. "I don't love you," he said. "I'm sorry. I don't even know you yet, but give me a few minutes. We live in strange times. We also live in strange places, each in a universe of our own. The people with whom we populate our universes are the shadows of whole other universes intersecting with our own." Being able to glance out into this bewildered complexity of infinite recursion and say things like, "Oh, hi Ed, nice tan, how's Carol?" involves a great deal of filtering skill for which all conscious entities have eventually to develop a capacity in order to protect themselves from the contemplation of the chaos through which they seethe and tumble. So give your kid a break, okay? Extract from Practical Parenting in a fractally demented universe. What's this? Arthur had almost given up. That is to say, he was not going to give up. He was absolutely not going to give up. Not now, not ever. But if he had been the sort of person who was going to give up, this was probably the time he would have done it. Not content with being surely bad-tempered, wanting to go and play in the Paleozoic era, not seeing why they had to have the gravity on the whole time and shouting at the sun to stop following her, Random had also used his carving knife to dig up stones to throw at the pika birds for looking at her like that. Arthur didn't even know if Lemula had had a Paleozoic era. According to old Thrashbarg, the planet had been found fully formed in the navel of a giant earwig at 4:30 one Runday afternoon, and although Arthur as a seasoned galactic traveler with good O-level classes in physics and geography, had fairly serious doubts about this. It was rather a waste of time trying to argue with old Thrashberg. There had never been much point before. He sighed as he sat, nursing the chipped and bent knife. He was going to love her if it killed him. Or he, or both. It wasn't easy being a father. He knew that no one had ever said it was going to be easy, but that wasn't the point because he'd never asked about being one in the first place. He was doing his best. Every moment that he could rest away from making sandwiches, he was spending with her. Talking to her, walking with her, sitting on the hill with her, watching the sun go down over the valley in which the village nestled, trying to find out about her life, trying to explain to her about his. It was a tricky business. The common ground between them, apart from the fact that they had almost identical genes, was about the size of a pebble, or rather, it was about the size of Trillian, and of her, they had slightly differing views. What's this? He suddenly realized she had been talking to him and he hadn't noticed, or rather, he had not recognized her voice. Instead of the usual tone of voice in which she spoke to him, which was bitter and truculent, she was just asking him a simple question. He looked around in surprise. She was sitting there on a stool in the corner of the hut in that rather hunched way. She had knees together, feet splayed out, with her dark hair hanging down over her face, as she looked at something she had cradled in her hands. Arthur went over to her, a little nervously. Her mood swings were very unpredictable, but so far, they'd all been between different types of bad ones. Outbreaks of bitter recrimination would give way without warning to abject self-pity, and then long bouts of sullen despair, which were punctuated with sudden acts of mindless violence against inanimate objects and demands to go to electric clubs. Not only were there no electric clubs on La Mula, there were no clubs at all and, in fact, no electricity. There was a forge and a bakery, a few carts and a well, but those were the high watermark of Umelan technology, and a fair number of Random's unquenchable rages were directed against the sheer incomprehensible backwardness of the place. She could pick up sub-ether TV on a small flexopanel which had been surgically implanted in her wrist, but that didn't cheer her up at all because it was full of news of insanely exciting things happening in every part of the galaxy than here. It would also give her frequent news of her mother, who had dumped her to go off and cover some war, which now seemed to have happened, or at least to have gone all wrong in some way because of absence of any proper intelligence gathering. It also gave her access to lots of great adventure shows featuring all sorts of fantastically expensive spaceships crashing into each other. The villagers were absolutely hypnotized by all those wonderful magic images flashing over her wrist. They had only ever seen one spaceship crash, and it had been so frightening, violent and shocking, and had caused so much terrible devastation, fire and death that, stupidly, they had never realized it was entertaining. Old Thrashbark had been so astonished by it that he had instantly seen Random as an emissary from Bob, but had fairly soon afterward decided that in fact she had been sent as a test of his faith, if not of his patience. He was also alarmed at the number of spaceship crashes he had to start incorporating into his holy stories, if he was to hold the attention of the villagers, and not have them rushing off to peer at Random's wrist all the time. At the moment, she was not peering at her wrist. Her wrist was turned off. Arthur squatted down quietly beside her to see what she was looking at. It was his watch. He had taken it off when he'd gone to shower under the local waterfall, and Random had found it and was trying to work it out. "It's just a watch," he said. "It's to tell the time." "I know that," she said, "but you keep on fiddling with it and it still doesn't tell the right time, or even anything like it." She brought up the display on her wrist panel, which automatically produced a readout of local time. Her wrist panel had quietly got on with the business of measuring the local gravity and orbital momentum, and had noticed where the sun was and tracked its movement in the sky. All within the first few minutes of Random's arrival, it had then quickly picked up clues from its environment as to what the local unit conventions were and reset itself appropriately. It did this sort of thing continually, which was particularly valuable if you did a lot of traveling in time as well as space. Random frowned at her father's watch, which didn't do any of this. Arthur was very fond of it. It was a better one than he would ever have afforded himself. He had been given it on his 22nd birthday by a rich and guilt-ridden godfather who had forgotten every single birthday he had had up until then, and also his name. It had the day, the date, the phases of the moon. It had to Albert on his 21st birthday, and the wrong date engraved on the battered and scratched surface of its back in letters that were still just about visible. The watch had been through a considerable amount of stuff in the last few years, most of which would fall well outside the warranty. He didn't suppose, of course, that the warranty had especially mentioned that the watch was guaranteed to be accurate only within the very particular gravitational and magnetic fields of the Earth, and so long as the day was 24 hours long and the planet didn't explode and so on. These were such basic assumptions that even the lawyers would have missed them. Luckily, his watch was a wind-up one, or at least a self-winder. Nowhere else in the galaxy would he have found batteries of precisely the dimensions and power specifications that were perfectly standard on Earth. "So what are all these numbers?" asked Random. Arthur took it from her. "These numbers round the edge mark the hours. In the little window on the right it says THU, which means Thursday, and the number is 14, which means it's the 14th day of the month of May, which is what it says in this window over here. And this sort of crescent-shaped window at the top tells you about the phases of the moon. In other words, it tells you how much of the moon is lit up at night by the sun, which depends on the relative positions of the sun and the moon and, well, the Earth." "The Earth?" said Random. "Yes." "And that's where you came from and where Mum came from?" "Yes." Random took the watch back from him and looked at it again clearly, baffled by something. Then she held it up to her ear and listened in puzzlement. "What's that noise?" "It's ticking. That's the mechanism that drives the watch. It's called clockwork. It's all kind of interlocking cogs and springs that work to turn the hands around at exactly the right speed to make the hours and minutes and days and so on." Random carried on peering at it. "There's something puzzling you," said Arthur. "What is it?" "Yes," said Random at last. "Why is it all in hardware?" Arthur suggested they go for a walk. He felt there were things they should discuss, and for once Random seemed, if not precisely, amenable and willing, then at least not growling. From Random's point of view, this was also all very weird. It wasn't that she wanted to be difficult as such, it was just that she didn't know how or what else to be. Who was this guy? What was this life she was supposed to lead? What was this world she was supposed to lead it in? And what was this universe that kept coming at her through her eyes and ears? What was it for? What did it want? She'd been born in a spaceship that had been going through from somewhere to somewhere else. and when it had got to somewhere else had only turned out to be another somewhere that you had to get to somewhere else again from, and so on. It was her normal expectation that she was supposed to be somewhere else. It was normal for her to feel that she was in the wrong place. Then, constant time travel had only compounded this problem, and had led to the feeling that she was not only always in the wrong place, but she was also almost always there at the wrong time. She didn't notice that she felt this, because it was the only way she ever felt. Just as it never seemed odd to her that nearly everywhere she went, she needed either to wear weights or anti-gravity suits, and usually special apparatus for breathing as well. The only places you could ever feel were worlds you designed for yourself to inhabit, virtual realities and the electric clubs. It had never occurred to her that the real universe was something you could actually fit into. And that included this La Mula place her mother had dumped her in, and it also included this person who had bestowed on her this precious and magical gift of life in return for a seat upgrade. It was just as well he had turned out to be rather kind and friendly, or there would have been trouble. Really. She'd got a specially sharpened stone in her pocket she could cause a lot of trouble with. It can be very dangerous to see things from somebody else's point of view without the proper training. They sat on the spot that Arthur particularly liked, on the side of a hill overlooking the valley. The sun was going down over the village. The only thing that Arthur wasn't quite so fond of was being able to see a little way into the next valley, where a deep, dark, mingled furrow in the forest marked the spot where his ship had crashed. But maybe that was what kept bringing him back here. There were plenty of spots from which you could survey the lush rolling countryside of La Mula, but this was the one he was drawn to, with its nagging dark spot of fear and pain nestling just on the edge of his vision. He had never been there again since he had been pulled out of the wreckage. Couldn't bear it. In fact, he had gone some of the way back to it, the very next day, while he was still numb and spinning with shock. He had a broken leg, a couple of broken ribs, some bad burns, and was not really thinking coherently, but had insisted that the villagers take him, which, uneasily, they had. He had not managed to get right to the actual spot where the ground had bubbled and melted, however, and had alas hobbled away from the horror forever. Soon word had got around that the whole area was haunted, and no one had ventured back there ever since. The land was full of beautiful, verdant, and delightful valleys. No point in going to a highly worrying place. Let the past hold on to itself and let the present move forward into the future. Random cradled the watch in her hands, slowly turning to let the long light of the evening sun shine warmly on the scratches and scuffs of the thick glass. It fascinated her watching the spidery little second hand ticking its way around. Every time it completed a full circle, the longer of the two main hands had moved on exactly to the next of the 60 small divisions around the dial. And when the long hand had made its own full circle, the smaller hand had moved on to the next of the main digits. "You've been watching it for over an hour," said Arthur quietly. "I know," she said. "An hour is when the big hand has gone all the way around, yes?" "That's right. And I've been watching it for an hour and 17 minutes?" She smiled with a deep and mysterious pleasure, and moved very slightly so that she was resting just a little against his arm. Arthur felt that a small sigh escaped from him that had been pent up inside his chest for weeks. He wanted to put his arm around his daughter's shoulder, but felt it was too early yet and that she would shy away from him. But something was working. Something was easing inside her. The watch meant something to her that nothing in her life had so far managed to do. Arthur was not sure that he had really understood what it was yet, but he was profoundly pleased and relieved that something had reached her. "Explain to me again," said Random. "There's nothing really to it," said Arthur. "Clockwork was something that developed over hundreds of years." "Earth years?" "Yes. It became finer and finer, and more intricate. It was highly skilled and delicate work. It had to be made very small, and it had to carry on working accurately, however much you waved it around or dropped it." "But only on one planet?" "Well, that was where it was made, you see. It was never expected to go anywhere else and deal with different suns and moons and magnetic fields and things. I mean, the thing still goes perfectly well, but it doesn't really mean much this far from Switzerland." "From where?" "Switzerland, that's where these were made. A small hilly country, tiresomely neat. The people who made them didn't really know there were other worlds." "Quite a big thing not to know." "Well, yes. So where did they come from?" "They, that is we just sort of grew there. We evolved on the Earth from, I don't know, some kind of sludge or something? Like this watch?" I don't think the watch grew out of sludge." "You don't understand." Random suddenly leapt to her feet, shouting, "You don't understand. You don't understand me. You don't understand anything. I hate you for being so stupid." She started to run hectically down the hill, still clutching the watch and shouting that she hated him. Arthur jumped up, startled and at a loss. He started to run after her through the stringy and clumpy grass. It was hard and painful for him. When he had broken his leg in the crash, it had not been a clean break, and had not healed clearly. He was stumbling and wincing as he ran. Suddenly she turned and faced him, her face dark with anger. She brandished the watch at him. "You don't understand that there's somewhere this belongs, somewhere it works, somewhere that it fits." She turned and ran again. She was fit and fleet-footed, and Arthur could not remotely keep up with her. It wasn't that he had not expected being a father to be this difficult. It was that he hadn't expected to be a father at all, particularly not suddenly and unexpectedly on an alien planet. Random turned to shout at him again. For some reason, he stopped each time she did. "Who do you think I am?" she demanded angrily. "Your upgrade? Who do you think Mum thought I was? Some sort of ticket to the life she didn't have?" "I don't know what you mean by that," said Arthur, panting and hurting. "You don't know what anybody means by anything." "What do you mean?" Shut up, shut up, shut up. "Tell me, please tell me, what does she mean by saying the life she didn't have?" "She wished she'd stayed on Earth. She wished she hadn't gone off with that stupid brain-dead fruit gum Zaphod. She thinks she would have had a different life." "But," said Arthur, "she would have been killed. She would have been killed when the world was destroyed." "That's a different life, isn't it?" She wouldn't have had to have me. She hates me." "You can't mean that. How could anyone possibly, she had me because I was meant to make things fit for her. That was my job. But I fitted even worse than she did. So she just shut me off and carried on with her stupid life." What's stupid about her life? She's fantastically successful, isn't she? She's all over time and space, all over the sub-ether TV networks. Stupid, 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 stupid. Random turned and ran off again. Arthur couldn't keep up with her, and at last he had to sit down for a bit and let the pain in his leg subside. The turmoil in his head he didn't know what to do with at all. He hobbled into the village an hour later. It was getting dark. The villagers he passed said hello, but there was a sense of nervousness and of not quite knowing what was going on or what to do about it in the air. Old Thrashbark had been seen pulling on his beard a fair bit and looking at the moon. and that was not a good sign either. Arthur went into his hut. Random was sitting hunched quietly over the table. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry." "That's all right," said Arthur as gently as he knew how. "It's good to have a little chat. There's so much we have to learn and understand about each other, and life it isn't all just tea and sandwiches." "I'm so sorry," she said again, sobbing. Arthur went up to her and put his arm around her shoulder. She didn't resist or pull away. Then Arthur saw what it was she was sorry about. In the pool of light thrown by a Lemurian lantern lay Arthur's watch. Random had forced the back of it off with the back edge of the butter-spreading knife, and all of the minute cogs and springs and levers were lying in a tiny, cockeyed mess where she'd been fiddling with them. "I just wanted to see how it worked," said Random. "How it all fitted together. I'm so sorry. I can't get it back together. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I'll get it repaired, really. I'll get it repaired." The following day, Thrashbard came around and said all sorts of Bob stuff. He tried to exert a calming influence by inviting Random to let her mind dwell on the ineffable mystery of the giant earwig. When Random said there was no giant earwig, and Thrashbard went very cold and silent and said she would be cast into outer darkness, Random said good. She had been born there, and the next day the parcel arrived. This was all getting a bit eventful. In fact, when the parcel arrived, delivered by a kind of robot drone that dropped out of the sky making droning robot noises, it brought with it a sense, which gradually began to permeate through the whole village, that it was almost one event too many. It wasn't the robot drone's fault. All it required was Arthur Dent's signature or thumbprint, or just a few scrapings of skin cells from the nape of his neck, and it would be on its way again. It hung around waiting, not quite sure what all this resentment was about. Meanwhile, Herb had caught another fish with a head at both ends, but on closer inspection, it turned out that it was in fact two fish cut in half and sewn together rather badly. So not only had Kip failed to rekindle any great interest in two-headed fish, but he had seriously cast doubt on the authenticity of the first one. Only the Pika birds seemed to feel that everything was exactly normal. The robot drone got Arthur's signature and made its escape. Arthur bore the parcel back to his hut and sat and looked at it. "Let's open it," said Random, who was feeling much more cheerful this morning now that everything around her had got thoroughly weird, but Arthur said no. "Why not?" "It's not addressed to me." "Yes, it is." "No, it isn't. It's addressed to... it's addressed to Ford Prefect in care of me." "Ford Prefect? Is he the one who..." "Yes," said Arthur tartly. "I've heard about him." "Expect you have." "Let's open it anyway. What else are we going to do?" "I don't know," said Arthur, who really wasn't sure. He'd taken his damaged knife over to the forge bright and early that morning, and Strinder had had a look at them and said that he would see what he could do. They all tried the usual business of waving the knives through the air, feeling for the point of balance and the point of flex and so on. The joy was gone from it, and Arthur had a sad feeling that his sandwich-making days were probably numbered. He hung his head. The next appearance of the perfectly normal beasts was imminent, but Arthur felt that the usual festivities of hunting and feasting were going to be rather muted and uncertain. Something had happened here on Lemula, and Arthur had a horrible feeling that it was him. "What do you think it is?" urged Random, turning the parcel over in her hands. "I don't know," said Arthur. "Something bad and worrying, though." "How do you know?" Random protested. "Because everything that's to do with Ford Prefect is bound to be worse and more worrying than something that isn't," said Arthur. "Believe me." "You're upset about something, aren't you?" said Random. Arthur sighed. "I'm just feeling a little jumpy and unsettled, I think," said Arthur. "I'm sorry," said Random, and put the package down again. She could see that it really would upset him if she opened it. She would just have to do it when he wasn't looking. Chapter 16. Arthur wasn't quite certain which he noticed as being missing first. When he noticed that the one wasn't there, his mind instantly leapt to the other, and he knew immediately that they were both gone and that something insanely bad and difficult to deal with would happen as a result. Random was not there, and neither was the parcel. He had left it up on a shelf all day, in plain view. It was an exercise in trust. He knew that one of the things he was supposed to do as a parent was to show trust in his child, to build a sense of trust and confidence into the bedrock of relationship between them. He had had a nasty feeling that that might be an idiotic thing to do, but he did it anyway. And sure enough, it had turned out to be an idiotic thing to do. You live and learn. At any rate, you live. You also panic. Arthur ran out of the hut. It was the middle of the evening. The light was getting dim, and a storm was brewing. He could not see her anywhere, nor any sign of her. He asked. No one had seen her. He asked again. No one else had seen her. They were going home for the night. A little wind was whipping around the edge of the village, picking things up and tossing them around in a dangerously casual manner. He found old Thrashbarg and asked him. Thrashbarg looked at him stonily, and then pointed in the one direction that Arthur had dreaded, and had therefore instinctively known was the way she would have gone. So now he knew the worst. She had gone where she thought he would not follow her. He looked up at the sky, which was sullen, streaked and livid, and reflected that it was the sort of sky that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse wouldn't feel like a bunch of complete idiots riding out of. With a heavy sense of the utmost foreboding, he set off on the track that led to the forest in the next valley. The first heavy blobs of rain began to hit the ground as Arthur tried to drag himself to some sort of run. Random reached the crest of the hill and looked down into the next valley. It had been a longer and harder climb than she had anticipated. She was a little worried that doing the trip at night was not that great of an idea, but her father had been mooching around near the hut all day, trying to pretend to either her or himself that he wasn't guarding the parcel. At last, he'd had to go over to the forge to talk to the stranger about the knives, when Random had seized her opportunity and done a runner with the parcel. It was perfectly clear that she couldn't just open the thing there in the hut or even in the village. He might have come home across her at any moment, which meant that she had to go where she wouldn't be followed. She could stop where she was now. She had gone this way in the hope that he wouldn't follow her, and even if he did, he would never find her up in the wooded parts of the hill with night drawing in and the rain starting. All the way up, the parcel had been jiggling under her arm. It was a satisfying hunky sort of thing, a box with a square top about the length of her forearm on each side, and about the length of her hand deep, wrapped up in a brown clasper with an ingenious new form of self-knotting string. It hadn't rattled as she shook it, but she sensed that its weight was concentrated excitingly at the center. Having come so far, though, there was a certain satisfaction in not stopping here, but carrying on down into what seemed to be almost a forbidden area, where her father's ship had come down. She wasn't exactly certain what the word haunted meant, but it might be fun to find out. She would keep going and save the parcel for when she got there. It was getting darker, though. She hadn't used her tiny electric torch yet, because she didn't want to be visible from a distance. She would have to use it now, but it probably didn't matter now since she would be on the other side of the hill that divided the valleys from each other. She turned her torch on. Almost at the same moment, a fork of lightning ripped across the sky into which she was heading and startled her considerably. As the darkness shuddered back around her and a clap of thunder rolled out across the land, she felt suddenly rather small and lost with just a feeble pencil of light bobbing in her hand. Perhaps she should stop after all and open the parcel here. Or maybe she should go back and come out again tomorrow. It was only a momentary hesitation, though. She knew there was no going back tonight and sensed that there was no going back ever. She headed on down the side of the hill. The rain was beginning to pick up now, where a short while ago had been a few heavy drops. It was settling in for a good pour now, hissing in the trees, and the ground was getting slippery under her feet. At least, she thought, it was the rain hissing in the trees. Shadows were leaping and leering at her as her light bobbed through the trees, onward and downward. She hurried on for another 10 or 15 minutes, soaked to the skin now and shivering, and gradually became aware that there seemed to be some other light somewhere ahead of her. It was very faint, and she wasn't certain if she was imagining it or not. She turned off her torch to see. There did seem to be some sort of dim glow ahead. She couldn't tell what it was. She turned her torch back on and continued down the hill toward whatever it was. There was something wrong with the woods, though. She couldn't immediately say what it was, but they didn't seem like sprightly, healthy woods looking forward to a good spring. The trees were lolling at sickly angles and had a sort of pallid, blighted look about them. Random, more than once, had the worrying sensation that they were trying to reach toward her as she passed them. But it was just a trick of the way that her light caused her shadows to flicker and lurch. Suddenly, something fell out of a tree in front of her. She leapt backward with alarm, dropping both the torch and the box as she did so. She went down into a crouch, pulling the specially sharpened rock out of her pocket. The thing that had fallen out of the tree was moving. The torch was lying on the ground and pointing toward it. And a vast, grotesque shadow was slowly lurching through the light toward her. She could hear faint rustling and screeching noises over the steady hiss of the rain. She scrabbled on the ground for the torch, found it, and shone it directly at the creature. At the same moment, another dropped from a tree just a few feet away. She swung the torch wildly from one to the other. She held her rock up, ready to throw. They were quite small, in fact. It was the angle of the light that made them look so large. Not only small, but small, furry, and cuddly. And there was another dropping from the trees that fell through the beam of light, so she saw it quite clearly. It fell neatly and precisely, turned, and then, like the other two, started slowly and purposefully to advance on random. She stayed rooted to the spot. She still had her rock poised and ready to throw, but was increasingly conscious of the fact that the things she had it poised and ready to throw at were squirrels. Or at least squirrel-like things. Soft, warm, cuddly, squirrel-like things advancing on her in a way she wasn't at all certain she liked. She shone her torch directly on the first of them. It was making aggressive, hectoring, screeching noises and carrying in one of its little fists a small tattered piece of wet, pink rag. Random hefted her rock menacingly in her hand, but it made no impression at all on the squirrel advancing on her with its wet piece of rag. She backed away. She didn't know at all how to deal with this. If they had been vicious, snarling, slavering beasts with glistening fangs, she would have pitched into them with a will, but squirrels behaving like this, she couldn't quite handle. She backed away again. The second squirrel was starting to make a flanking maneuver around to her right, carrying a cup, some kind of acorn thing. The third was right behind it and making its own advance. What was it carrying? Some little scrap of soggy paper, Random thought. She stepped back again, caught her ankle against the root of a tree, and fell over backward. Instantly, the first squirrel darted forward and was on top of her, advancing along her stomach with cold purpose in its eyes and a piece of wet rag in its fist. Random tried to jump up, but only managed to jump about an inch. The startled movement of the squirrel on her stomach startled her in return. The squirrel froze, gripping her skin through her soaking shirt with its tiny claws. Then slowly, inch by inch, it made its way up her, stopped, and proffered her the rag. She felt almost hypnotized by the strangeness of the thing and its tiny glinting eyes. It proffered her the rag again. It pushed it at her repeatedly, screeching insistently, till at last, nervously, hesitantly, she took the thing from it. It continued to watch her intently, its eyes darting all over her face. She had no idea what to do. Rain and mud were streaming down her face, and she had a squirrel sitting on her. She wiped some mud out of her eyes with the rag. The squirrel shrieked triumphantly, grabbed the rag back, leapt off her, and ran scampering into the dark. Enclosing night, darted up into a tree, dived into a hole in the trunk, settled back, and lit a cigarette. Meanwhile, Random was trying to fend off the squirrel with the acorn cup full of rain and the one with the paper. She shuffled backward on her bottom. "No!" she shouted. "Go away!" They darted back in fright, and then darted right forward again with their gifts. She brandished her rock at them. "Go!" she yelled. Squirrels scampered around in consternation. Then one darted straight at her, dropping the acorn cup in her lap, turned and ran off into the night. The other stood quivering for a moment, then put its scrap of paper neatly down in front of her and disappeared as well. She was alone again, but trembling with confusion. She got unsteadily to her feet, picked up her rock and her parcel, then paused and picked up the scrap of paper as well. It was so soggy and dilapidated, it was hard to make out what it was. It seemed just to be a fragment of an in-flight magazine. Just as Random was trying to understand exactly what it was that this all meant, a man walked out into the clearing in which she was standing, raised a vicious-looking gun, and shot her. Arthur was thrashing around hopelessly 2 or 3 miles behind her on the upward side of the hill. Within minutes of setting out, he had gone back again and equipped himself with a lamp. Not an electric one. The only electric light in the place was the one that Random had brought with her. This was a kind of dim hurricane lamp, a perforated metal canister from Strinder's Forge, which contained a reservoir of inflammable fish oil, wick of knotted dried grass, and was wrapped in a translucent film made from dried membranes from the gut of a perfectly normal beast. It had now gone out. Arthur jiggled around with it in a thoroughly pointless kind of way for a few seconds. There was clearly no way he was going to get the thing suddenly to burst into flame again in the middle of a rainstorm. But it's impossible not to make a token effort. Reluctantly, he threw the thing aside. What to do? This was hopeless. He was absolutely sodden, his clothes heavy and billowing with the rain, and now he was lost in the dark as well. For a brief second, he was lost in the blinding light, and then he was lost in the dark again. A sheet of lightning had at least shown him that he was very close to the brow of the hill. Once he had breasted that, he wasn't certain what he would do. He'd have to work that out when he got there. He limped forward and upward. A few minutes later, he knew that he was standing, panting at the top. There was some kind of dim glow in the distance below him. He had no idea what it was, and indeed he hardly liked to think. It was the only thing he had to make toward, though, so he started to make his way, stumbling, lost and frightened, toward it. The flash of lethal light passed straight through Random, and about 2 seconds later, so did the man who had shot it. Other than that, he paid no attention whatsoever. He had shot someone standing behind her, and when she turned to look, he was kneeling over the body and going through its pockets. The tableau froze and finished. It was replaced a second later by a giant pair of teeth framed by immense and perfectly glossed red lips. A huge blue brush appeared out of nowhere and started, foamily, to scrub at the teeth, which continued to hang there gleaming in the shimmering curtain of rain. Random blinked at it twice before she got it. It was a commercial. The guy who had shot her was part of the holographic in-flight movie. He must now be very close to where the ship had crashed. Obviously, some of its systems were more indestructible than others. The next half-mile of the journey was particularly troublesome. Not only did she have the cold and the rain and the night to contend with, but also the fractured and thrashing remains of the ship's onboard entertainment system. Starships and jet cars and helipads crashed and exploded continuously around her. Eliminating the night, villainous people in strange hats smuggled dangerous drugs through her. And the combined orchestra and chorus of the Halapalos State Opera performed the closing march of the Anjacantine Star Guard from Act 6 of Risgar's Blamwellium of Wundt in a little glade somewhere off to her left. And then she was standing on the lip of a very nasty-looking and bubbly-edged crater. There was still a faint warm glow coming from what would otherwise have looked like an enormous piece of caramelized chewing gum in the center of the pit, the melted remains of a great spaceship. She stood looking at it for a longish while, and then at last started to walk along and around the edge of the crater. She was no longer certain what she was looking for, but kept moving anyway, keeping the horror of the pit to her left. The rain was beginning to ease off a little, but it was still extremely wet, and since she didn't know what it was that was in the box, whether it was perhaps something delicate or damageable, she thought that she ought to find somewhere reasonably dry to open it. She hoped she hadn't already damaged it by dropping it. She played her torch around the surrounding trees, which were thin on the ground here and mostly charred and broken. In the middle distance, she thought she could see a jumbled outcrop of rock that might provide some shelter, and she started to pick her way toward it. All around, she found the detritus that had been ejected from the ship as it broke up before the final fireball. After she had moved 200 or 300 yards from the edge of the crater, she came across the tattered fragments of some fluffy pink material, sodden, muddied, and drooping among the broken trees. She guessed correctly that this must be the remains of the escape cocoon that had saved her father's life. She went and looked at it more closely, and then noticed something close to it on the ground, half covered in mud. She picked it up and wiped it off. It was some kind of electronic device the size of a small book. Feebly glowing on its cover, in response to her touch, were some large, friendly letters. They said, "Don't panic." She knew what this was. It was her father's copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. She felt instantly reassured by it, turned her head up to the thundery sky, and let some rain wash over her face and into her mouth. She shook her head and hurried on toward the rocks, clambering up and over them. She almost immediately found the perfect thing, the mouth of a cave. She played her torch into its interior. It seemed to be a dry and safe place. Picking her way carefully, she walked in. It was quite spacious, but didn't go that deep. Exhausted and relieved, she sat on a convenient rock, put the box down in front of her, and started immediately to open it. On that note, boys and girls, we're going to go to our first music break. On this break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her group Antidote for Savages with Lemire and Crypto, Let Me Be Your Home, Our New Reality, and Your Skeleton. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight is story time with me, TessaTNT. So we're going to continue with our book for this hour. The book we're reading is Mostly Harmless by Mr. Douglas Adams. I'm sad that it's the last book, but I have to look back a handful of shows ago and see what my friend Mr. Hayes had said as a book to read. It sounded pretty interesting, so hopefully it's a good one. If you guys have any requests on books, you can leave it in the chat here, or you can email me at weareparadoxmedia@gmail.com. Chapter 17. For a long period of time, there was much speculation and controversy about where the so-called missing matter of the universe had got to. All over the galaxy, the science departments of all the major universities were acquiring more and elaborate equipment to probe and search the hearts of distant galaxies, and in the very center and the very edges of the whole universe. But when eventually it was tracked down, it turned out, in fact, to be all the stuff which the equipment had been packed in. There was quite a large quantity of missing matter in the box, little soft round white pellets of missing matter, which Random discarded for future generations of physicists to track down and discover all over again, once the findings of the current generation of physicists had been lost and forgotten about. Out of the pellets of missing matter, she lifted the featureless black disc. She put it down on a rock beside her and sifted among all the missing matter to see if there was anything else. A manual or some attachments or something, but there was nothing else at all, just the black disc. She shone the torch on it. As she did so, cracks began to appear along its apparently featureless face. Random backed away nervously, but then saw that the thing, whatever it was merely unfolding itself. The process was wonderfully beautiful. It was extraordinarily elaborate, but also simple and elegant. It was like a piece of self-opening origami, or a rosebud blooming into a rose in just a few seconds. Where just a few moments earlier there had been a smoothly curved black disc, there was now a bird hovering there. Random continued to back away from it, carefully and watchfully. It was like a little peekabird, only rather smaller. That is to say, in fact, it was larger, or to be more exact, precisely the same size, or, at least, not less than twice the size. It was almost both a lot bluer or a lot pinker than peekabirds, while at the same time being perfectly black. There was also something very odd about it, which Random couldn't immediately make out. It certainly shared with peekabirds the impression it gave that it was watching something that you couldn't see. Suddenly, it vanished. And then just as suddenly, everything went black. Random dropped into a tense crouch, feeling for the specially sharpened rock in her pocket again. Then the blackness receded and rolled itself up into a ball, and then the blackness was the bird again. It hung in the air in front of her, beating its wings slowly and staring at her. "Excuse me," it said suddenly. "I just have to collaborate myself. Can you hear me when I say this?" "When you say what?" demanded Random. "Good," said the bird. "And you can hear me when I say this." It spoke this time at a much higher pitch. "Yes, of course I can," said Random. "And you can hear me when I say this time, in a sepulchrally deep voice. "Yes." There was then a pause. "No, obviously not," said the bird after a few seconds. "Good, well, your hearing range is obviously between 16 and 20 kHz. So, is this comfortable for you?" it said in the pleasant, light tenor. No uncomfortable harmonics screeching away in the upper register? Obviously not. Good. I can see those as data channels. Now, how many of me can you see? Suddenly, the air was full of nothing but interlocking birds. Random was well used to spending time in virtual realities, but this was something far weirder than anything she had previously encountered. It was as if the whole geometry of space was redefined in seamless bird shapes. Random gasped and flung her arms around her face, her arms moving through a bird-shaped space. Obviously way too many, said the bird. How about now? It concertinaed into a tunnel of birds, as if it was a bird caught between parallel mirrors, reflecting infinitely into the distance. What are you? Shouted Random. Well, to that in a minute, said the bird. Just how many, please? Well, you sort of, Random gestured helplessly off into the distance. I see, still infinite in extent, but at least we're homing in on the right dimensional matrix. Good. No, the answer is an orange and 2 lemons. Lemons? Hey, Adrian. If I have 3 lemons and 3 oranges and I lose 2 oranges and a lemon, what do I have left? Huh? Okay, so you think that time flows that way, do you? Interesting. Am I still infinite? It asked, ballooning this way and that in space. Am I infinite now? How yellow am I? Moment by moment, the bird was going through mind-mingling transformations of shape and extent. I can't, said Random, bewildered. You don't have to answer. I can tell from watching you now. So, am I your mother? Am I a rock? So I seem huge, squishy, and sinuously intertwined? No? How about now? Am I going backward? For once, the bird was perfectly still and steady. No, said Random. Well, I was, in fact. I was moving backward in time. Well, I think we've sorted all that out now. If you'd like to know, I can tell you that in your universe you move freely in 3 dimensions that you call space. You move in a straight line in a 4th, which you call time, and stay rooted to one place in a 5th, which is the first fundamental of probability. After that, it gets a bit complicated. And there's all sorts of stuff going on in dimensions 13 to 22 that you really wouldn't want to know about. All you really need to know for the moment is that the universe is a lot more complicated than you might think, even if you start from a position of thinking it's pretty damn complicated in the first place. I can easily not say words like damn if it offends you. Say what you damn well like. I will. What the hell are you? Demanded Random. I am the guide. In your universe, I am your guide. In fact, I inhabit what is technically known as the whole sort of general mishmash, which means, well, let me show you. It turned in midair and swooped out of the cave and then perched on a rock just beneath an overhang out of the rain, which was getting heavier again. Come on, it said. Watch this. Random didn't like being bossed around by a bird, but she followed it to the mouth of the cave anyway, still fingering the rock in her pocket. Rain, said the bird. You see? Just rain. I know what rain is. Sheets of the stuff were sweeping through the night, moonlight sifting through it. So what is it? What do you mean, what is it? Look, who are you? What were you doing in that box? Why have I spent a night running through the forest, fending off demented squirrels, to find that all I've got at the end of this is a bird asking me what rain is? It's just water falling from the bloody sky. That's what it is. Anything else you want to know, or can we go home now? There was a long pause before the bird answered. You want to go home? I haven't got a home. Random almost shocked herself. She screamed the words so loudly. Look into the rain, said the bird guide. I'm looking into the rain. What else is there to look at? What do you see? What do you mean, you stupid bird? I just see a load of rain. It's just water falling. What shapes do you see in the water? Shapes? There Aren't any shapes. It's just a mishmash, said the bird guide. Yes. Now what do you see? Just on the very edge of visibility, a thin, faint beam fanned out of the bird's eyes. In the air beneath the overhang, there was nothing to see. Where the beam hit the drops of rain as they fell through it, there was a flat sheet of light, so bright and vivid it seemed solid. Oh, great! A laser show, said Random, fractiously. Never seen one of those before, of course, except at about 5 million rock concerts. Tell me what you see. Just a flat sheet, stupid bird. There's nothing there that wasn't there before. I'm just using light to draw your attention to certain drops at certain moments. Now what do you see? The light shut off. Nothing. I'm doing exactly the same thing, but with ultraviolet light. You can't see it. So what's the point of showing me something I can't see? So that you understand that just because you see something, it doesn't mean to say it's there. And if you don't see something, it doesn't mean to say it's not there. It's only what your senses bring to your attention. I'm bored with this, said Random, and then gasped. Hanging in the rain was a giant and very vivid three-dimensional image of her father, looking startled about something. About 2 miles away behind Random, her father, struggling his way through the woods, suddenly stopped. He was startled to see an image of himself looking startled about something hanging brightly in the rain-filled air about 2 miles away. About 2 miles away, some distance to the right of the direction in which he was heading. He was almost completely lost, was convinced he was going to die of cold and wet exhaustion, and was beginning to wish he could just get on with it. He had just been brought an entire golfing magazine by a squirrel as well, and his brain was beginning to howl and gibber. Seeing a huge bright image of himself light up in the sky told him that, on balance, he was probably right to howl and gibber, but probably wrong as far as the direction he was heading was concerned. Taking a deep breath, he turned and headed off toward the inexplicable light show. Okay, so what's the purpose to prove? Demanded Random. It was the fact that the image was her father and that had startled her rather than the appearance of the image itself. She had seen her first hologram when she was 2 months old and had been put in it to play. She had seen her most recent one about half an hour ago, playing the march of the Anja Kantine Star Guard. Only that it's no more there or not there than the sheet was, said the bird. It's just the interaction of water from the sky moving in one direction, with light at frequencies your senses can detect moving in another. It makes an apparently solid image in your mind, but it's just images in the mishmash. Here's another one for you. My mother? No, said the bird. I know my mother when I see her. The image was a woman emerging from a spacecraft inside a large, gray, hangar-like building. She was being escorted by a group of tall, thin, purplish-green creatures. It was definitely Random's mother. Well, almost definitely. Trillian wouldn't have been walking quite so uncertainly in low gravity or looking around her at a boring old life support environment with quite such a disbelieving look on her face or carrying such a quaint old Camry. Who is it? Demanded Random. She is part of the extent of your mother on the probability axis, said the bird guide. I haven't the faintest idea what you mean. Space, time, and probability all have axes along which it is possible to move. Still don't know, though I think... No, explain. I thought you wanted to go home. Explain! Would you like to see your home? See it? It was destroyed. It is discontinuous along the probability axis. Look! Something very strange and wonderful now swam into view in the rain. It was a huge, bluish-greenish globe, misty and cloud-covered, turning with majestic slowness against a black, starry background. Now you see it, said the bird. Now you don't. A little less than 2 miles away now, Arthur Dent stood still in his tracks. He could not believe what he could see, hanging there, shrouded in rain, but brilliant and vividly real against the night sky. The Earth. He gasped at the sight of it. Then, at the moment he gasped it disappeared again. Then it appeared again. Then, and this was the bit that made him give up and stick straws in his hair, it turned into a sausage. Random was also bewildered at the sight of this huge blue and green and watery and misty sausage hanging above her. And now it was a string of sausages, or rather it was a string of sausages in which many of the sausages were missing. The whole brilliant string turned and spun in a bewildering dance in the air and then gradually slowed, grew insubstantial, and faded into the glistening darkness of the night. "What was that?" asked Random in a small voice. "A glimpse along the probability axis of a discontinuously probable object." "I see. Most objects mutate and change along their axis of probability, but the world of your origin does something slightly different. It lies on what you might call a fault line in the landscape of probability, which means that at any moment probability coordinates, the whole of it, simply ceases to exist. It has an inherent instability, which is typical of anything that lies within what are usually designated the plural sectors. Make sense? No. Want to go and see for yourself? To Earth? Yes. Is that possible? The bird guide did not answer at once. It spread its wings and with an easy grace ascended into the air and flew out into the rain, which, once again, was beginning to lighten. It soared ecstatically up into the night sky. Lights flashed around it. Dimensions dithered in its wake. It swooped and turned and looped and turned again, and came at last to rest 2 feet in front of Random's face, its wings beating slowly and silently. It spoke again. "Your universe is vast to you, vast in time, vast in space. That's because of the filters through which you perceive it. But I was built with no filters at all, which means I perceive the mishmash, which contains all possible universes, but which has itself no size at all. For me, anything is possible. I am omniscient or omnipotent, extremely vain, and, what is more, I come in a handy self-carrying package. You have to work out how much of the above is true." A slow smile spread over Random's face. "You bloody little thing, you've been winding me up. As I said, anything's possible." Random laughed. "Okay," she said. "Let's try and go to Earth. Let's go to Earth at some point on its, probability axis? Yes, where it hasn't been blown up. Okay, so you're the guide. How do we get a lift?" "Reverse engineering." "What?" "Reverse engineering. To me, the flow of time is irrelevant. You decide what you want. I then merely make sure that it has already happened." "You're joking." "Anything is possible." Random frowned. "You are joking, aren't you?" "Let me put it another way," said the bird. "Reverse engineering enables us to shortcut all the business of waiting for one of the horrible few spaceships that passes through your galactic sector every year or so to make up its mind about whether or not it feels like giving you a lift. You want a lift? A ship arrives and gives you one. The pilot may think he has any one of a million reasons why he has decided to stop and pick you up. The real reason is that I have determined that he will." "This is you being extremely vain, isn't it, little bird?" The bird was silent. "Okay," said Random. "I want a ship to take me to Earth. Will this one do?" It was so silent that Random had not noticed the descending spaceship until it was nearly on top of her. Arthur had noticed it. He was a mile away now and closing. Just after the illuminated sausage display had drawn to its conclusion, he had noticed the faint glimmerings of further lights coming down out of the clouds and had, to begin with, assumed it to be another piece of flashy son et lumière. It took a moment or so for it to dawn on him that it was an actual spaceship, and a moment or two longer for him to realize that it was dropping directly down to where he assumed his daughter to be. That was when, rain or no rain, one leg injury or no leg injury, darkness or no darkness, he suddenly started really to run. He fell almost immediately, slid and hurt his knee quite badly on a rock. He slithered back to his feet and tried again. He had a horrible cold feeling that he was about to lose Random forever. Limping and cursing, he ran. He didn't know what it was that had been in the box, but the name on it had been Ford Prefect, and that was the name he cursed as he ran. The ship was one of the sexiest and most beautiful ones that Random had ever seen. It was astounding, silver, sleek, and effable. If she didn't know better, she would have said it was an RW6. As it settled silently beside her, she realized that it actually was an RW6, and she could scarcely breathe for excitement. An RW6 was the sort of thing you only saw in the sort of magazines that were designed to provoke civil unrest. She was also extremely nervous. The manner and timing of its arrival was deeply unsettling. Either it was the most bizarre coincidence or something very peculiar and worrying was going on. She waited a little tensely for the ship's hatch to open. Her guide, she thought of it as hers now, was hovering lightly over her right shoulder, its wings barely fluttering. The hatch opened. Just a little dim light escaped. A moment or two passed and a figure emerged. He stood still for a moment or so, obviously trying to accustom his eyes to the darkness. Then he caught sight of Random standing there and seemed a little surprised. He started to walk toward her. Then suddenly he shouted in surprise and started to run at her. Random was not a good person to take a run at on a dark night when she was feeling a little strung out. She had unconsciously been fingering the rock in her pocket from the moment she saw the craft coming down. Still running, slithering, hurtling, bumping into trees, Arthur saw at last that he was too late. The ship had only been on the ground for about 3 minutes, and now, silently, gracefully, it was rising up above the trees again, turning smoothly in the fine speckle of rain in which the storm had now abated, climbing, tipping up its nose, and suddenly, effortlessly, hurtling up through the clouds. Gone. Random was in it. It was impossible for Arthur to know this, but he just went ahead and knew it anyway. She was gone. He had had this stint at being a parent and could scarcely believe how badly he had done at it. He tried to continue running, but his feet were dragging. His knee was hurting like a furry, and he knew that he was too late. He could not conceive that he could feel more wretched and awful than this, but he was wrong. He limped his way, at last, to the cave where Random had sheltered and opened the box. The ground bore the indentations of the spacecraft that had landed there only minutes before, but of Random there was no sign. He wandered disconsolately into the cave, found the empty box and piles of missing matter pellets strewn around the place. He felt a little cross about that. He tried to teach her about cleaning up after herself, and feeling a bit cross with her about something that helped him feel less desolate about her leaving, he knew he had no means of finding her. His foot knocked against something unexpected. He bent down to pick it up, and was thoroughly surprised to discover what it was. It was his old Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. How did that come to be in a cave? He had never returned to collect it from the scene of the crash. He had not wanted to revisit the crash, and he had not wanted the guide again. He had reckoned he was here on La Mula making sandwiches for good. How did it come to be in the cave? It was active. The words on the cover flashed, "Don't panic," at him. He went out of the cave again into the dim and damp moonlight. He sat on a rock to have a look through the old guide and then discovered it wasn't a rock. It was a person. Chapter 18. Oh no. Took a drink of my drink and, of course, the lid leaked on me. Wonderful. Arthur leapt to his feet with a start of fear. It would be hard to say which he was more frightened of. That he might have hurt the person he had inadvertently sat on, or that the person he had inadvertently sat on would hurt him back. There seemed, on inspection, to be little immediate cause for alarm on the second count. Whoever it was he had sat on was unconscious. That would probably go a great deal of the way toward explaining what he was doing lying there. He seemed to be breathing okay, though. Arthur felt his pulse. That was okay as well. He was lying on his side, half curled up. It was so long ago and far away when Arthur had last done first aid that he really couldn't remember what it was he was supposed to do. The first thing he was supposed to do, he remembered, was to have a first aid kit about his person. Damn. Should he roll him onto his back or not? Suppose he had any broken bones? Suppose he swallowed his tongue? Suppose he sued him? Who, apart from anything else, was he? At that moment, the unconscious man groaned loudly and rolled himself over. Arthur wondered if he should. He looked at him. He looked at him again. He looked at him again just to make absolutely sure. Despite the fact that he'd been thinking he was feeling about as low as possibly he could, he experienced a terrible sinking feeling. The figure groaned again and slowly opened his eyes. It took him a while to focus, then he blinked and stiffened. "You!" said Ford Prefect. "You!" said Arthur Dent. Ford groaned again. "What do you need to have explained this time?" he said, and closed his eyes in some kind of despair. 5 minutes later, he was sitting up and rubbing the side of his head, where he had quite a large swelling. "Who the hell was that woman?" he said. "Why are we surrounded by squirrels, and what do they want?" "I've been pestered by squirrels all night," said Arthur. "They keep on trying to give me magazines and stuff." Ford frowned. "Really?" he said. "In bits of rag." Ford thought, "Is this near where your ship crashed?" "Yes," said Arthur. He said it a little tightly. "That's probably it. Can happen. Ships, cabin robots get destroyed. The cyber minds that control them survive and start infecting the local wildlife. Can turn a whole ecosystem into some kind of helpless, thrashing service industry, handing out hot towels and drinks to passerbys. Should be a law against it. Probably is. Probably also a law against there being a law against it, so everybody can get nice and worked up. Hey ho, what did you say?" "I said, and the woman was my daughter." Ford stopped rubbing his head. "Say that one more time." "I said," said Arthur huffily, "the woman is my daughter." "I didn't know," said Ford, "that you had a daughter." "Well, there's probably a lot you don't know about me," said Arthur. "Come to mention it, there's probably a lot I don't know about me either." Well, when did this happen?" "I'm not quite sure." "That sounds like more familiar territory," said Ford. "Is there a mother involved?" Trillion. I didn't think that. No, look, it's a bit embarrassing. I remember she told me once she had a kid, but only sort of in passing. I'm in touch with her from time to time. Never seen her with a kid. Arthur said nothing. Ford started to feel the side of his head again in some bemusement. Are you sure this was your daughter? He said. Tell me what happened. Long story. I was coming to pick up this parcel I'd sent to myself, here, care of you. Well, what was that all about? I think it may be something unimaginably dangerous. And you sent it to me, protested Arthur. Safest place I could think of. I thought I could rely on you to be absolutely boring and not open it. Anyway, coming in at night, I couldn't find this village place. I was going by pretty basic information. I couldn't find any signal of any kind. I guess you don't have signals and stuff here. That's what I like about it. Then I did pick up a faint signal from your old copy of the guide, so I honed in on it, thinking that would take me to you. I found I'd landed in some kind of wood. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I got out, and then see this woman standing there. I go up to say hello, then suddenly I see that she's got this thing. What thing? The thing I sent you, the new guide, the bird thing. You were meant to keep it. Keep it safe, you idiot. But this woman had the thing right there by her shoulder. I ran forward and she hit me with a rock. I see, said Arthur. What did you do? Well, I fell over, of course. I was very badly hurt. She and the bird started to take off toward my ship, and when I say my ship, I mean an RW6. A what? An RW6, for Zark's sake. I've got this great relationship going now between my credit card and the guide's central computer. You would not believe that ship, Arthur. It's... So an RW6 is a spaceship, then? Yes! It's... Oh, never mind. Look, just get some kind of grip, will ya, Arthur? Or at least get some kind of catalog? At this point, I was very worried, and you think semi-concussed? I was down on my knees and bleeding profusely, so I did the only thing I could think of, which was to beg. I said, please, for Zark's sake, don't take my ship, and don't leave me stranded in the middle of some primitive Zarking forest with no medical help and a head injury. I could be in serious trouble, and so could she. What did she say? She hit me on the head with a rock again. I think I confirm that that was my daughter. Sweet kid. You have to get to know her, said Arthur. She eases up, does she? No, said Arthur, but you get a better sense of when to duck. Ford held his head and tried to see straight. The sky was beginning to lighten in the west, which was where the sun rose. Arthur didn't particularly want to see it. The last thing he wanted after a hellish night like this one was some blasted day coming along and barging about the place. What are you doing in a place like this, Arthur? Demanded Ford. Well, said Arthur, I'm making sandwiches mostly. What? I probably was, the sandwich maker for a small tribe. It was a bit embarrassing, really. When I first arrived, that is, when they rescued me from the wreckage of the super high-technology spacecraft that had crashed on their planet, they were very nice to me and thought I should help them out a bit. You know, I'm an educated chap from a high-technology culture. I could show them a thing or two, and of course I couldn't. I haven't got the faintest idea, when it comes down to it, of how anything actually works. I don't mean like video recorders. Nobody knows how to work those. I mean just something like a pin or an artesian, well, or something. Not the foggiest. I couldn't help it at all. One day I got glum and made myself a sandwich. That suddenly got them all excited. They'd never seen one before. It was just an idea that had never occurred to them, and I happened to quite like making sandwiches, so it all sort of developed from there. And you enjoyed that? Well, yes, I think I sort of did, really. Getting a good set of knives and that sort of thing. You didn't, for instance, find it mind-witheringly, explosively, astoundingly, blisteringly dull? Well, no, not as much, not actually blisteringly. Thought I would. I suppose we have a different outlook. Yes, like the peekabeds. Ford had no idea what he was talking about and couldn't be bothered to ask. Instead, he said, So, how the hell do we get out of this place? Well, I think the simplest way from here is just to follow the way down the valley to the plains, probably take an hour and then walk around from there. I don't think I could face going back up and over the way I came. Walk around where from there? Well, back to the village, I suppose. Arthur sighed a little forlornly. I don't want to go to any blasted village, snapped Ford. We've got to get out of here. Where? How? I don't know. You tell me. You live here. There must be some way off this lurking planet. I don't know. What do you usually do? Sit around and wait for a passing spacecraft, I suppose? Well, a few years ago, there was mine that crashed here by mistake. Then there was, Trillion, then the parcel delivery, and now you, and... Yes, but apart from the usual suspects. Well, I think pretty much none, so far as I know. Pretty quiet around here. As if deliberately to prove him wrong, there was a long, low, distant roll of thunder. Ford leapt to his feet fretfully and started pacing backward and forward in the feeble, painful light of the early dawn, which lay streaked against the sky as if someone had dragged a piece of liver across it. Sounds delightful. You don't understand how important this is, he said. What? You mean my daughter out there all alone in the galaxy? You think I don't... Can we feel sorry for the galaxy later? Said Ford. This is very, very serious indeed. The guide has been taken over. It's been bought out. Arthur leapt up. Oh, very serious, he shouted. Please fill me in straight away on some corporate publishing politics. I can't tell how much it's been on my mind late. You don't understand. There's a whole new guide. Oh, shuddered Arthur again. Oh. I'm incoherent with excitement. I can hardly wait for it to come out and find out which are the most exciting spaceports to get bored hanging out in some globular cluster I've never heard of. Please, can we rush to a store that's got it right this very instant? Ford narrowed his eyes. This is that thing you call sarcasm, isn't it? Do you know, bellowed Arthur, I think it is. I really think it might just be a crazy little thing called sarcasm seeping in at the edges of my manner of speech. Ford, I've had a fucking bad night. Will you please try and take that into account while you consider the fascinating bits of Badger Sweetrum and consequential trivial to assail me with next? Try to rest, said Ford. I need to think. Why do you need to think? Can't we just sit and go bum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum with our lips for a bit? Couldn't we just dribble gently and roll a little bit to the left for a few minutes? I can't stand it, Ford. I can't stand all this thinking and trying to work things out anymore. You may think that I am just standing here barking. Hadn't occurred to me, in fact. But I mean it. What is the point? We assume that every time we do anything, we know what the consequences will be, i.e., more or less what we intend them to be. This is not only not always correct, it is wildly, crazily, stupidly, cross-eyed, blithering, and sickly wrong. Which is exactly my point. Thank you, said Arthur, sitting down again. What? Temporal reverse engineering. Arthur put his head in his hands and shook it gently from side to side. Is there any humane way, he moaned, in which I can prevent you from telling me what temporary versus bloody what sitting is? No, said Ford, because your daughter is caught up in the middle of it, and it is deadly, deadly serious. All right, said Arthur, tell me. I leapt out of a high-rise office window. This cheered Arthur up. Oh, he said. Why don't you do it again? I did. Said Arthur, disappointed. Obviously, no good came of it. First time, I managed to save myself by the most astonishing and, I say this in all modesty, fabulous piece of ingenious quick thinking, agility, fancy footwork, and self-sacrifice. I jettisoned half of a much-loved and I think irreplaceable pair of shoes. Why was that self-sacrifice? I jettisoned half of a much-loved and I think irreplaceable pair of shoes. Why was that self-sacrificing? Because they were mine, said Ford crossly. I think we have different value systems. Well, mine's better. That's according to your... Oh, never mind. So, having saved yourself very cleverly once, you very sensibly went and jumped again. Please don't tell me why. Just tell me what happened, if you must. I fell straight into the open cockpit of a passing jet town car whose pilot had just accidentally pushed the eject button when he meant only to change tracks on the stereo. Now even I couldn't think that that was particularly clever of me. I don't know, said Arthur wearily. I expect you probably sneaked into his jet car the previous night and set the pilot's least favorite track to play or something. No, I didn't. Just checking. Though oddly enough, somebody else did. And this is the nub. You could trace the chain and branches of crucial events and coincidences back and back. Turned out the new guide had done it. That bird. What bird? You haven't seen it? No? Oh, well, it's a lethal little thing. Looks pretty, talks big, collapses waveforms selectively at will. What does that mean? Temporal reverse engineering? Oh, said Ruth. Oh, yes. The question is, who is it really doing it for? I've actually got a sandwich in my pocket, said Arthur delving. Would you like a bit? Yeah, okay. It's a bit squished and sodden, I'm afraid. Never mind. They munched for a bit. It's quite good, in fact, said Ford. What's the meat in it? Perfectly normal beast. Not come across that one, so the question is, Ford continued, who is the bird really doing it for? What is the game here? Ate Arthur. When I found the bird, continued Ford, which I did by a series of coincidences that are interesting in themselves, it put on the most fantastic multi-dimensional display of pyrotechnics I've ever seen. It then said that it would put its services at my disposal in my universe. I said, thanks, but no thanks. It said that it would anyway, whether I liked it or not. I said, just try it, and it said it would, and indeed already had done so. I said we'd see about that, and it said it would. That's when I decided to pack the thing up and get it out of there, so I sent it to you for safety. Oh yeah? Whose? Never you mind. Then, what with one thing and another, I thought it prudent to jump out of the window again, being fresh out of other options at the time. Luckily for me, the jet car was there, otherwise I would have had to fall back on ingenious quick thinking. Agility, maybe another shoe, or failing all else, the ground. But it meant that, whether I liked it or not, the guide was, well, working for me, and it was deeply worrying. Why? Because if you've got the guide, you think that you are the one it's working for. Everything went swimmingly smoothly for me from then on, up to the very moment that I came up against the toddy with the rock. Then bang, I'm history. I'm out of the loop. Are you referring to my daughter? As politely as I can. She's the next one on the chain who will think that everything is being fabulously done for her. She can beat whoever she likes around the head with bits of the landscape. Everything will just swim for her until she's done whatever she's supposed to do, and then it will be all up to her. It's reverse temporal engineering, and clearly nobody understood what was being unleashed. Well, we haven't finished the chapter. I don't think we will tonight because I think we could do it. Like me, for instance. What? Wake up, Arthur. Look, let me try it again. the new guide came out of the research labs. It made use of the new technology of unfiltered perception. Do you know what that means? Look, I've been making sandwiches for Bob's sake. Who's Bob? Never mind, just carry on. Unfiltered perception means it perceives everything. Got that? You don't perceive everything. You don't perceive everything. We have filters. The new guide doesn't have any sense filters. It perceives everything. It wasn't a complicated technological idea. It was just a question of leaving a bit out. Got it? Why don't I just say that I've got it and then you can carry on regardless? Right now, because the bird can perceive every possible universe, is it present in every possible universe? Yes? Yes, fish. So what happens is the bozos in the marketing and accounting department say, oh, that sounds good. Doesn't that mean we only have to make one of them and then sell it an infinite number of times? Don't squint at me like that, Arthur. This is how accountants think. That's quite clever, isn't it? No. It is fantastically stupid. Look, the machine's only a little guide. It's got some quite clever cyber technology in it, but because of its unfiltered perception, any smallest movement it makes has the power of a virus. It can propagate throughout space, time, and a million other dimensions. Anything can be focused anywhere in any of the universes that you and I move in. Its power is recursive. Think of a computer program. Somewhere there is one key instruction and everything else is just functions calling themselves, or brackets billowing out endlessly through an infinite address space. What happens when the brackets collapse? Where's the final and if? Is any of this making sense? Arthur? Sorry, I was nodding off for a moment. Something about the universe, yes? Something about the universe, yes, said Ford wearily. He sat down again. All right, he said. Think about this. You know who I think I saw at the guide offices? Vogons. I see. I've said a word you understand at last. Arthur leapt to his feet. That noise, he said. What noise? The thunder. What about it? It isn't thunder. It's the spring migration of the perfectly normal beast. It started. What are these animals you keep on about? Don't keep on about them. I just put bits of them in sandwiches. Why are they called perfectly normal beasts? Arthur told him. It wasn't often that Arthur had the pleasure of seeing Ford's eyes open wide with astonishment. Alright, so we're going to end there on chapter 19. Oh, we actually made it through that chapter, and we don't have very much more to go. We might actually finish this book next weekend. So on this music break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band Antidote for Savages, singing Bury Me in Heaven, Not a Phase, Singing to Your Grave, and The Bottom Line. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
This choice. No record, no work, no job, no savings of money. Just a choice right now between fear and love. Right now, between fear and love.
What the heck is going on with my camera? Let me check my settings really quick. Anywho's, welcome back. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we were reading Mostly Harmless by Mr. Douglas Adams. That was pretty good. I'm hoping I can get this to work. Jeez, oh Pete. Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. Is it working? Yeah, it's just really lagging. I don't know. All right, so for the third hour, we always do a creepy video, and I have one that I've gotten from Top 15, and this guy does a really good job with his stuff. Come on now. Come on, computer. Well, while it's working on that, let's go on over here and share this, shall we? Come right here. So this is top 15 scary videos that need to be studied.
Number 15. In the sewer. We all know that the sewer is full of rats and Ninja Turtles, but Redditor Micron Lance
Nah. Uh-oh. I think I'm going to have to kick the kids
found
off their
something even
computers.
more disturbing lurking below. Take a look.
It's full of ants!
Oh no.
While you may be surprised to find a colony of bats in the sewer or storm drain, these environments actually offer them something that resembles their natural habitat.
Did you know you don't even have to be bit by a bat to contract rabies?
Sewers provide a dark, damp, and sheltered space, ideal for roosting during the day. The confined, cave-like conditions mimic the natural caves, crevices, and hollow trees where bats traditionally rest. They also often maintain a stable temperature, offering warmth in colder seasons and a cool retreat from the heat, making them an ideal option for bats seeking refuge. More importantly, sewers can sometimes harbor insects, which are a primary food source for many bat species. The presence of standing water and organic material can attract flies and mosquitoes. Although many in the comments are saying this isn't that terrifying, and some even find bats adorable. Others say this looks like rabies central.
That's what I'm saying.
It's full of bats.
And some aren't really surprised to find bats down there at all. Redditor Soul Install writes, "How do you think Batman gets around so quickly?" Now there's a thinker. Number 14. Over Melbourne. A bright vertical object was seen in the sky over Melbourne, and TikToker Stranger67000 shares the compelling
what
footage.
Is that?
What the is that?
Exactly.
That's crazy, man.
The luminous anomaly has many in the comments tossing out theories.
It's a
Some say it's
alien
just
orb.
the sun. Others suggest it's an angel. But many agree this is Project Bluebeam in action.
Wow. Sure giving them a lot of credit, I think.
Project Bluebeam first gained traction in the 1990s. According to the theory, the project is a secret government operation aimed at establishing a new world order by using advanced technology to create a series of staged, apocalyptic events. According to believers, the ultimate goal is to manipulate global populations into accepting a unified, authoritarian world government. The theory outlines several key steps that Project Bluebeam supposedly follows, one of which involves the use of holographic technology to project massive spacecraft in the sky, deceiving people into believing they're witnessing divine or extraterrestrial events. These so-called staged events are intended to culminate in a global
I know what I've seen
crisis,
here is not
leading to
Project
the
Bluebeam,
establishment
like,
of the New
those are
World Order.
UFOs.
But the Laugh
Not buying
Corner
this Project
disagrees with this
Bluebeam
theory
shit.
wholeheartedly.
Yes, I know there's
They
things they
write,
can't do,
it's
but
sun reflecting off the
can't
Eureka
go
Tower
myself,
while the
but
tower is covered
there's
in fog.
actually
I'm from Melbourne and
entities
live
out
in the
there,
city.
like,
This is a common sight
entities.
in winter.
what the heck is that?
While it may be a building's outline in the clouds, that doesn't really explain why it appears to be shining so brightly. Is it just a combination of the angle and the sunlight bouncing off the building's reflective windows? Or is this something else entirely? Number 13. Phantom Tennis. The tennis court has never seen anything like this. Shared by TikToker Christian Guerrero 24, a child-sized phantom appears to sprint across the screen at the net during a set.
Well, I've seen this one before.
The semi-transparent figure mysteriously disappears as the tennis ball
So I
hits
wonder
the
if that's
net.
like a
Some in
ball
the
boy
comments
that
are
used to work
wondering
there.
if
Ball
this is
boys would
real.
run back and forth.
Is it
and
the ghost of
go
a
and
former
collect all
ball
the
boy or
balls.
girl? Others think there must be some ghosting in the footage.
It's a ball boy.
Ghosting
Or
refers
girl.
to a visual artifact where a faint, blurred, or duplicated image appears. This can happen when a camera or recording equipment struggles to capture fast-moving objects or when the video signal is delayed, creating a ghost of the original image that trails behind or overlaps. Ghosting can also occur due to poor signal transmission or reflection of the video signal in analog setups. It's a technical issue rather than a paranormal phenomenon. But is what we're looking at ghosting, or is it an actual ghost?
I think it's an actual ghost.
What do you think, Scoob?
You decide. Number 12. Eerie Anomaly. Security guards have a front row seat to the paranormal, and Redditor Fuzzy Cable 5988 is VIP. This security footage from work left them unnerved. Take a look.
And then I'll rewind it and we'll just
For context, the former security guard worked at North Beach, a bar in Downers Grove, Illinois. While reviewing overnight footage from the back common area of the strip mall, a mysterious light emerges from beneath the remnants of a fountain machine on the floor to the left. The light moves across the floor, and the rest unfolds on camera. There are no windows in that area, and no swinging lights that could explain the phenomenon. The only reason the owner noticed it was due to a movement notification from the security system. This wasn't the first bizarre incident at that location, but it was one of the few captured on video. Despite being a logical person, the OP couldn't find a rational explanation for what they saw, ruling out common explanations like bugs or dust.
Yeah, that's trippy.
But most in the comments are saying it is a bug, specifically a moth. Redditor 4Run Yoda
No
is
way.
one of them. They write,
What do you guys think? I
That's
don't think
a
so.
moth with a reflective coat on it. A lot of them have this powder that helps the light bounce back off of them. Others think it's a bird or a weather balloon.
It's funny all the things they think that certain things are.
Still others think it's something far more interesting. Imaginary Air 27 writes, so a channeler posted something similar to this and said it was a time portal. They appear and then disappear and can circle around. Also, notice how it disrupts the electrical feed of the video.
What the heck? Yeah, that's a moth. I don't think so.
A time portal connects different points in time, allowing a person or object to travel between the past, present, and future. They're often depicted as swirling vortices or doorways that open up seemingly at random or in specific locations with unique energy or magnetic fields. Some theories suggest that these portals could be the result of distortions in the fabric of space-time, caused by powerful cosmic events, such as black holes or supernovae, or even by advanced technology that manipulates the laws of physics. These gateways are said to appear and disappear in a cyclical pattern, following a mysterious rhythm that's influenced by factors like planetary alignments, cosmic radiation, or even human activity. Some
Right.
speculate that certain locations on Earth with a history of paranormal activity might be hotspots for time portals. Is this one of those hotspots? If so, what time would you like to travel to? Number 11. Bird Glitch. We've seen many a strange glitch in the Matrix on our top 15s, but this is one of the most unbelievable yet. Redditor WASDX
What the
QWERTY
crap
shares
is
footage
that?
of a bird seemingly frozen in flight.
No.
Ano yung ibon? Ano yung ito? Sugar, dahil pagkakuan na.
While some passerby notice the bird and are momentarily distracted, they continue on as though nothing's amiss. Redditor Drastic2 believes it's a
That
dead
is
bird
trippy.
stuck on a wire, and Phil Tomato agrees
How?
that it might have gotten stuck on a kite wire, as kites are
Yeah.
flown a lot in the Philippines, where this footage
gosh.
appears to have been shot.
Siguro dahil yung pagkakuan na, saan na lang? Hindi nakatali.
Others suggest it could be the web of a Joro spider, which are native to East Asia and can also catch birds. The Joro
They're huge
spider
and
is
they're
easily
scary.
recognizable by its vibrant yellow, blue, and red markings,
Don't like
and
it.
its webs, which can span
Come on,
several
guys.
feet in diameter and are super strong, made of golden silk. This silk is not only visually stunning, but also highly durable. While they primarily feed on insects, there have been occasional reports of these spiders capturing small birds in their webs. Although this is not a common occurrence, it does happen. When a small bird inadvertently flies into a Joro spider's web, it may become entangled. Sensing the
see
vibrations
how
caused
that
by the
could be way
trapped
out there.
bird, the spider
I
will
don't
approach
agree with
cautiously
that.
and not typically feed on it. Instead, they are more likely to abandon the prey or wrap it in silk and leave it. Some in the comments say it's not a bird at all, but rather something smaller and closer to the camera, like a dangling
What?
leaf or spider web. But some
what?
really do think our simulation is buffering. What do you think?
That's what it looks like.
Is this an unfortunate bird stuck
do
in
you
a
think?
wire or web?
Leave a comment below.
Not a bird at all?
Hindi nakatali.
Come on, Mia.
Or is it a glitch in the Matrix? Number 10.
how else
Humanoid
to
over
explain
Chile. A strange capture was spotted flying over a city in Chile. YouTuber UFO's Alien Santana 6428 shares the mysterious footage that is leaving viewers guessing.
¡Mira eso! ¡Se está moviendo!
Mira! Oh, she is tripped out. That is trippy.
¡Papá Noel!
It looks like a
Some
witch
think the
riding
humanoid
on
figure is a
broomstick.
witch on a broomstick.
That's
It
what I'm
doesn't look
saying.
like the typical UAP you see every day.
Just the way it's
It
shaped.
does seem to be a figure
you
sitting
see in the
upright
movies.
on a flying object.
Parece Papá
Isn't that
Noel.
weird? That's what they guess.
¿Pero
¿What? Es una bruja.
no!
Más cerca. Más cerca.
Some in the comments say they've seen similar videos shot in remote areas of the world. YouTuber Mountain Rain 1111 writes,
Oh, yeah?
"Not
That's
sure what this
interesting.
is, but I always feel an ominous feeling watching. There are no other suggestions as to what it could be. Maybe a drone, but even that seems unlikely." What do you think? Number 9.
Try not to.
Visiting Mother. An intriguing capture on home security camera has Redditor Appalachie Queen and their roommate convinced that the latter's deceased mother has come to pay a visit. Take a
Wow.
look.
Pretty damn cool. I'm gonna turn this down because I can't see very well.
Those that were home were sleeping,
Oh, I see it again.
and no one else was visiting at the time. The OP says the figure also appears to be wearing glasses, and their roommate's mom wore them too.
Oh. Hey, Mom.
Their mother passed away 3 months ago. Has she yet to cross over? Many agree
Has
that
she
this
come back to
isn't your
visit?
average capture. Redditor Nizam writes, "Looks pretty creepy. Seems to be passing behind objects, so it doesn't look like the usual spider or cobweb. Others think it
Spider.
could be a vape cloud, lingering due to the oscillating fan at the back of the room."
Maybe if we
But
got
some
paid for
say
thinking,
that though it looks
I'd put
eerie,
more
it might be camera
trust in it,
artifacted
or
or
faith in
motion
it.
blur.
I don't think
Camera
so.
artifacting refers to visual distortions or anomalies that appear in
That is
photos or
amazing.
videos due to technical limitations in the
If he
camera.
thinks it's his mom, I'm
The
sure he knows what his
artifacts
mom
can
looks
take
like.
many forms, such as pixelation, color shifts, blurring, or ghosting. They often occur in low light conditions, when the camera's sensor struggles to capture enough detail, or during fast motion, when the camera can't keep up with the subject's
Slow
speed.
motion for me.
Sometimes camera artifacting is mistaken for supernatural or paranormal phenomena, as it can produce strange shapes, lights, or shadows that seem out of place in the scene. For example,
say it's anything
light
but
reflecting off a
what we
lens
said it
can
was.
create orbs or streaks, while digital glitches can cause faces or objects to appear distorted. Although these effects may be unsettling, they're usually
I love
just
when
the
they changed
result
the
of the
light. This
camera's
is like more
technology
sepia than
struggling
black and
to
white, and I
accurately
think sepia
capture the
picks up
image. Redditors suggest to test the camera by moving something in the same dim lighting.
Yeah.
While we may never know if this is the OP's roommate's mother visiting, or something more mundane like artifacting, I think we can all agree with Don't Lose Your Cool
It's a
One,
human form.
who says, "This apparition moves and
do you
acts like every real
think it's a
ghost
human
video
form.
I've seen." Number 8.
Number 8.
Ghost interaction. Ghosts often interact through light. Their energy is said to sync with its frequency. That's why Redditor MacMommy4 is left wondering whether this flickering light is a ghost or poor electrical. See for yourself.
Can you turn my light back on, please? Thank you.
Wow. So also,
Can you leave my...
I could say, and I'm not saying this is true, but I could say that she has it plugged in to a power cord that's at her feet, and she's realized if she moves her feet a certain way, she can make it blink on and off. You know, kind of like this. I don't think it's the Solska sisters. I think those are new twins, but the twins back in the day that used to do the table tipping and tapping and tippy tap tap tap. Yeah, I think it's her messing with the cord is what it seems like. Unless she were to move, if she were to move and get up or whatever, and it still did it, then I
My
might
light
believe
on,
it.
please. Stop it. Don't touch it. It's on. Somebody keeps turning it off.
Those in the comments are leaning towards an electrical issue. Redditor Collinsford Toolbum, of the AC installation, and the spiderwebs below it. It seems like the wiring might not be in the best shape. They say it would be wise to have a professional inspect the wiring to ensure that
cause
everything
issues
is
with
safe and secure.
The wiring.
Lamatuk agrees that it's worth a test. They write, "I'm a master electrician. Try a different lamp there and see if you have the same interaction. I have a million things in my head diagnostically that could be at play here." The
Right.
OP says the AC unit is a secondary unit that isn't even plugged in. She also says she thought the bulb was loose, but it wasn't, and she also tried replacing it.
Can you please turn my light back on and leave it on, please? Thank you. Please leave it on. Please leave it on.
At least she's polite. Oh man, come on, man.
I know you're all the way over there. It wasn't you. I know.
For more context about the home, she moved
think
in
that might
6
be
months
her
ago
grandkid.
after the home had been empty for a few years. The previous owners were an elderly couple who had raised their 4 sons there before passing away. The new owners bought the house as it was, keeping many of the items left behind.
Oh
From
no.
the beginning, they noticed subtle oddities, movements in the corner of their eyes, faint sounds. Over time, they began talking to whatever was there, feeling a sense of connection rather than fear. They believed the spirits liked them, perhaps checking in now and then, satisfied with the
How
respect
you
shown
been?
to their old home.
I did
This
anything for you.
curious interaction with a lamp is something that has happened several times before. The OP believed the event was significant enough to warrant sharing. Despite the OP's stated paranormal experiences, folks in the comments continue to debate whether this is paranormal or simply bad wiring.
What he did. Can you turn my light back on, please?
And the answer to that is still at a draw. Number 7. Poor sport. This spirit is a poor sport. YouTuber Chris Duncan shares the bizarre footage of a pool stick apparently breaking on its own.
It's okay. Unless you're playing leagues. Don't be a poor sport.
Watch, John. Are you watching this thing? It's not moving. No. Oh, no, watch.
The stick continues to move around, though no one is near it.
Watch.
Keep watching.
Watch, John. Watch.
Yeah.
That hurts so bad. Nobody listens to me. There's ghosts in here. Nobody listens to me.
Watch it.
If I go crazy.
And then,
What? It untwists from itself.
It's still moving! It's still moving, y'all! It's still moving!
why and how? For a pool stick to break, great force must
my
be
gosh.
exerted. This stick is
Yeah.
moving just slightly on the ground. So how in the world did it snap in
Ever
half
so
like this?
slightly. What the crack, man? That was crazy. It's crazy.
Some say this video is wild, while others think the chaotic energy of children often attracts poltergeists. Others suggest the ghost has a vendetta against children, so broke it to get them in trouble. Still others think the
Okay.
stick was broken
I don't think it's
already,
broken.
and there are strings
I
attached.
think it untwisted.
What do you think is happening
Untwisted.
here? Whatever it is, get those kids
Oh, that
out of
is a
there.
brick because it twists
and
right there in the middle.
fast.
Holy shnikes.
Number 6.
What the
Spiderweb floats away. Redditor RudeActive4250 thought what they were seeing on camera was a spiderweb. That is, until it floated off into the night.
It's even giving off a reflection on the top of that vehicle. Wow.
This video has been sped up, but you can see the scope of the anomaly's behavior. Redditor Judge Tread says that despite drifting off, it's still a spiderweb, and most agree. Interesting Debate 30 adds, some in the comments seem to think it floats all the way over to the truck and down the hall, but it's just moving slightly away from the camera, and so appears to be traveling when it's just getting blown around a little. Others think it's not a spiderweb at all, but neither is it paranormal. They suggest their own.
Come on. Why would somebody do that? That's what I want to know. Why?
They also point out that it appears to reflect on the car.
That's what I'm saying. There's a reflection. So it's obviously there. It's not a bug or a web. This is something.
Still others are saying it's extraterrestrial technology, or even an interdimensional being.
Interdimensional.
Shadow5727 writes, if this isn't AI generated or a small drone, then I'm at a loss. He says it resembles a smaller version of an object reportedly seen flying over a base in Afghanistan. He also observes that the lights at the bottom of it seem to brush against the top of the truck and then slide over it as the object moves. And the way it sways when it moves suggests drag, meaning something is creating resistance in the airflow. This implies it's not just light. There's likely something physical hanging from the bottom. Do you see what they're seeing?
No. It's probably a magnetic field. Yeah, it's a magnetic field. You see that with the bigger ones too. It kind of bends the area around it.
Or is this just
It's because
another
of
spider
whatever's going on.
playing tricks on the mind? Number 5. Boom Boom Bass Boo. Did a ghost just make a cameo in this Rise music clip? TikToker
Oh my goodness.
Rise Official shares their dance footage, but it's what's unfolding behind
Nice.
the group that has TikTokers baffled. Did you see it? TikToker Kim12343446 asks, what is the genie behind them? If you missed it, watch closely in the back left, along the tree line.
It's not genie. I think it's referred to as jinn. Wow.
A semi-transparent figure appears to glide along in the park behind them before disappearing altogether.
Out of here.
Some are questioning if it's just a light. Others are wondering how a ghost got to see Rise perform before they did.
How'd I do that?
Perhaps it's Michael Jackson doing a cameo moonwalk. It's hard to tell what this is.
Just beat it. Just beat it. Just beat it, beat it. Oh!
But it may just be the unofficial 7th member of Rise. Number 4. Figure in the window. A pair of security guards are freaking out after witnessing an obscure figure in the window of a building not in use. TikToker The Bonehead shares the intense footage. Listen closely.
The lights, because I'm looking
the lights are,
and I can't see, like, I literally see nothing.
The lights are off right now. Oh, it just moved. It just moved. It just moved. It just moved.
The building is locked up. No one should be inside. So what is this?
Did you throw that?
I'm outside the door. I don't have access to that unit.
Now there's 2 figures, or is that a shadow of a figure?
Got thrown at the window.
Something clearly broke in, and it is angry.
Whoa.
When they press on, it grows angrier.
Something just got thrown again.
No, I did.
It's literally throwing a fit.
I'll be down in a minute. Has anything looked broken, like glass?
Then, as the guard inside is about to leave, this happens.
Dude, that was just behind me.
This looks like 2 again. When I saw this the first time, maybe it's because it was on my cell phone, I only saw 1. This looks like 2. One is darker than the other.
And we're left wondering what happened next. Many in the comments are on edge with this cliffhanger. TikToker Murdered 6.2 writes, never in a million years could you pay me enough to figure out what was going on in that room. Others think this is staged with some decent voice acting. And a few think it's a squatter in the building, not willing to give up their space.
Yeah, squatters are gonna sit there and stand in the window and throw shit.
All those in the comments who have worked security say they themselves have witnessed similar paranormal activity in the industry.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about this whole window thing when I was securing the apartments behind the Home Depot in Durango when they were first being built. They were put on security to make sure people didn't come in and take the brass piping, etc., or the copper wires or whatnot. And I would see figures in the windows. I would get pictures of figures in the windows and faces and stuff. It was trippy. The scariest thing, though, was the bum that showed up one night, because it was like he walked in front of my truck and I turned the lights on and he was still oblivious to the fact that I was there. So I grabbed my big old flashlight because I don't think I had my gun at that point, and made sure I had it in hand so I could whack him if I had to. Whack-a-mole. But he turned out to be a pretty alright guy.
And it's stuff they simply cannot explain.
Security, you see a lot of
Some
stuff.
even say people wouldn't believe them if they shared what they've experienced.
Even on the fairgrounds.
Do you think this is paranormal?
One hit my car and
or
I
just an
physically felt
intruder?
But it dissipated in my headlights when I flicked them on.
Or is this just a compelling work of fiction? Number 3. Knockdown. A man in Colombia got into a knockdown fight with what might be a spirit-or. Redditor Camo3 shares the bizarre footage.
Oh my god, this guy. I'm surprised he lived through this. That hit him hard.
The man can be seen entering the
Hitting his
stairwell.
head?
He's out of sight for a moment before being flung violently down the stairs. But it's the
I can't even
strange
say that
lightning
word.
quick object that appears to fly out of
on,
nowhere to
YouTube.
attack him that has some questioning everything.
Like a freaking rag doll, man. It knocked him out.
Many in the comments are finding
funny
this
'cause it came from
beyond
behind.
bizarre. Redditor C Presentation 4229 writes, "The origin of the object and its trajectory makes this a very peculiar case to study.
Yeah.
But according to Piss Out Haas, it can be explained. They think something was
Piss
tied
Out Haas,
securely
let's
to
go.
the door to hold it open, and it must have snapped. Watch again."
No. That was whatever.
But some
the fuck
don't
that
agree
was.
with this. First of all, the man appears to be thrown backward. How
Oh,
would
perfect
something from
timing.
outside snapping cause such a forceful
Well, it
launch
went
in the
in between
opposite
him and the
direction?
wall. Now that
Life
it's not at
Astronomer
that angle.
5394 thinks it makes no sense. They write, "I don't know. He got folded and thrown. He didn't just fall. I'm having trouble
he
being
didn't.
convinced anything attached to the door could
forcefully
have hit with
thrown.
that much force."
And
Some are
the
also
timing of it
saying if you
going in
watch
between
frame
him
by
and the
frame,
wall,
the man appears to be falling
how did it
before the
be anything
object
else?
hits him, if it even does.
It could have like flown by him and
Others
punched him or
believe the
kicked
man
him
was
or both.
electrocuted and thrown back with force. Still others think the figure is a dummy, as the body appears to be thrown like a rag doll.
Yeah, people have been thrown like that before. With such force? I don't think so. Yeah, that's why everybody rushed up there. The dog's even freaking out. The dog's like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Even stranger, some think a bug simply flew by the camera at the most
No.
opportune moment,
How
making it
is
appear
that?
as though
Perfect
something
timing.
hit the man
As
when
soon
he
as he gets
actually
there,
just
he
fell
flings
backward
out.
of his own accord. Or maybe
Yeah.
he was punched by someone inside. Watching the video on repeat doesn't help. The McRibsback writes, "Scrubbing this video has only made me more
It's something
confused.
on my lip.
I don't think it's a bug. It comes out from behind that round thing, not from out of screen. There is an odd light that shines to the right of the round object the moment before it appears
What?
not
I wanna
budge
see.
until the
Do it
flying
again.
object arrives, so coincidence seems unlikely."
Maybe it blinks in and flies? I don't know.
Many want to know what the man remembers of the incident. The answer
I wish they'd
is
do it in
nothing.
slow motion so I could see the
Although,
light
according
flash.
to the OP,
'Cause I think
he
that's
did
what it's doing,
require
it's like-
24 stitches at the hospital. So,
Jeez.
what do you believe? There are a dozen theories with this one, each one more unbelievable than the
I've
last.
fallen farther and I didn't need
Number
stitches.
2, haunted
He didn't fall.
house.
He was forcefully
While describing his
thrown.
experiences in his haunted house, YouTuber Professor Cynical has yet another live. Take a
Oh
look.
my.
That kind of stuff happens all the time now, and
I want to take a picture of this because I'd like to have this guy on my show.
He continues with his story, seemingly unaware that the door is swinging back and forth behind him.
My
terrifying. It
camera
is
was
just
trying
one
to
of
do
those
facial
things.
recognition. That was
But I
tricky.
mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and I
Well-
don't know really what else to do about it. So what I've done is I captured a good few things whilst I've not been posting.
He also shares some security footage of the paranormal experiences he's talking about.
Quite aggressive, I would say. What is that? Oh, does he have one of those ring lights on his phone? Or something? Why does it look like that?
As he monitors the area, the door starts to close on its own.
Bargain.
Yeah. I wouldn't stay there. Forget about it.
Nah.
Oh, that was an orb. Whatever you want to call it. I think it was an orb.
Again,
'Cause there's not
he
a lot, there's
finds
just
nothing
one.
behind
Oh,
it,
should go somewhere.
though there is clearly something in his home.
Clearly.
Many in the comments are shocked by what he's been dealing with and encourage him to continue filming these occurrences. But YouTuber Northeast Gun sees the flip side of this, writing,
Oh no.
"The problem is that the more attention you give it, the stronger it will get. But you can't just ignore it either.
No,
Others are
you gotta put
wondering
your foot
how
down.
he's still in this house and suggest he move. Like, now.
Okay, so with this one, I have a feeling if he does move, it's gonna follow him because I don't think the house is haunted. I think he is. I think he's going through some stressful times, so things are acting up. He emotionally feeds things, whether or not you know it, they can act up and cause issues.
What do you think?
But I don't know.
Is this
I
enough
want to hear if
activity
he does
to warrant a
move,
move?
if it does follow him, because I feel like it would.
On second thought, any activity is probably enough activity. Number 1. Very haunted. The haunted
Very, very
happenings in
haunted.
TikToker Darkcha's home will make you squirm. In a series of videos, the TikToker shares the events that are prompting her to call a priest. The first video sees some loud banging escalate to toys moving.
Could have been 7 or 8. What did you count?
As the poltergeist changes position, something is heard in the bathroom.
Maybe they're looking for the toothpaste? I don't know.
The banging is repeated in a second clip,
I was
followed
about to say,
by
did you see the
something
toilet paper
new.
move? But that's because of the wind from the door opening. But I hate hearing whatever the frack it is walking on my roof all the time, and it walks
As the door
until
swings
it's right above me.
closed, something is jostling the
Is that a
doorknob.
raccoon? Is that Blossom? Is that something else? I don't think so, because why would it stop right above me? I hate it. And I'm pretty sure I am a haunted person, but I don't know. Maybe things just come out because
But there's
it can
no
sense,
one
like,
there. Or is there?
Open. Man. Whoa. Okay, so I better start folding the clothes right now. Whoa.
You'd think you'd slam that door shut and never open it again. But the TikToker's next clip reveals there's more to come.
What? Oh yeah, I've seen this. I haven't seen the other stuff, but I've seen this. Sorry, my neck is messing with me. I slept in a bed that I'm not used
She
to
gets a
for 2
closer
nights, so
look, but
that's
finds
where it
no
comes
strings
from.
attached. And then,
Come on, let's go, horsey. Giddy up. Giddy up, horsey.
in another clip, she thinks she heard something. But after checking it, she sits down to her yogurt, only for this strange noise to resound.
I just ate my yogurt. Preliminary fool, I don't know what you're talking about, string boo. But good luck to you.
The bleeding from the eyes is overkill.
That's great.
Things are
Yeah.
obviously escalating. Even the TikToker's cat is sensing it. After a full minute of snarling
give
at
me some
something
treats?
unseen,
Climb along,
this
you gonna give me some
happens.
treats? Holy shit! Go save your cat, dude! Really, you're just gonna sit there?
What attacked the cat? We may never know. Despite the demon's energy being released in such a manner,
You have to
the
protect
knocking
those that can't protect
never
themselves.
ends.
Man. Kind of irritates me.
It really seems that whatever is here is playing mind games.
Yeah, keep doing that. Fuck
and it
off.
won't let up until
Yeah,
it's driven her
no.
mad.
You
Or
can
until
do
this
all
video has
shit
been
and then
studied.
put the sound over it to make it seem like something that's not, but I don't know. I think I'm not buying it. I'm not trying to be an a-hole or anything, but what the crack? What do you guys think? No, I was not convinced. I was not convinced at all. Use, let's see, is it working? There we go. Yeah, it's still pressing. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight for We Are Paradox Media's story time with me, TessaTNT. It was awesome to have you hang out with me. Late Night in the Rockies. I keep telling myself I need to go on Facebook or Facebook or whatever you call it. Maybe, is it Pinterest or Instagram? Okay, it's Instagram. I'm already on Twitch as like We Are Paradox Media, but then so Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, Twitter, aka X, and do whole separate page that would put me doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pages. I don't know if I can hang. Anyways, thank you all for being here, hanging out with me, all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Keeping On Radio, Twitter, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, anywhere you may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. I can't wait to do it again next weekend. So far, what I have scheduled is Trippy TikToks and story time. And it sucks because I keep getting copyright on TikToks, even though tons of other people are using these videos. It's like fair domain. Like, what the heck is the issue? I do not know. I do not know this is what they speak. It does not make any sense to me. But hey, maybe I'm not meant to understand. Yeah, we're going to do trippy TikToks, then story time once again. Pretty sure we're going to finish that book. I'm going to try to figure out what Mr. Hayes said as far as the book. I have it in the back of my head, but every time I try to say it, it won't come out. So yeah, we're going to do that one next, I think, because it's a request, and he said it's a good one, and I trust and believe in him. Don't forget, you guys, we're all in this together. Together, we can make the world a bit better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We're almost into next week. Tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, which I like a lot better than Christopher Columbus. I don't know if you know, but him putting those things on his sails show Knights Templar had the same crosses. Christopher Columbus or the Queen saw fit that he put that on his sails. That way, when they sail up, people will be like, oh, these are peaceful, religious people. These are the Knights Templar. When in fact, they're dirty. Frickin' Spaniards working for the Queen? What? I don't get it. How does this all interconnect? I don't know. I think I have to read it again. Anyways, I will see you back here at same crazy time, same crazy place. Nighty night, love and light. Take care of my use. Sweet dreams.